the early days of computing, many people used what I would call green screen computers. Green screen was the common name for a monochrome monitor using a green P1 phosphorus screen. The term is often misused to refer to any block mode display terminal, regardless of color, like IBM 3279, 3290, etc. These use cathode ray tube CRT technology, and phosphor coatings on CRTs were commonly available in green, which provided good visibility and contrast. Green phosphor was easier to produce and more durable than other colors. The result was a black screen with green text on it. And these computers required you to either know Disk Operating System, or DOS, or Unix, which were environments that required users to know a series of commands and parameters, which made using them very difficult without a lot of training. People generally didn't like DOS or Unix in the early days because DOS was considered too basic and user unfriendly, while Unix was seen as overly complex, expensive, and not readily accessible to the average user, especially due to its command line interface and lack of readily available applications compared to the growing library of software for DOS, which was bundled with most personal computers at the time. This made DOS the more practical choice for most users. However, the graphical user interface, GUI, became popular primarily due to Apple's Macintosh computer, which successfully implemented the concept of a visually intuitive interface using icons, windows, and a mouse, making it significantly easier for everyday users to navigate compared to earlier text-based command lines. With the foundational ideas for GUI originally developed at Xerox PARC and popularized by Steve Jobs with Apple. Bill Gates would also adapt this for Microsoft as well. So how did Microsoft and Apple capitalize on the lack of vision from Xerox at their Palo Alto Research Center? Well, in the early 1970s, Xerox developed a software which was a groundbreaking moment in the history of computing. With its revolutionary graphical user interface, or GUI, mouse-like pointing device, and what you see is what you get editors, the Xerox Alto was decades ahead of its time. Yet despite its technical brilliance, Xerox failed to commercialize this technology, leaving a gap that both Microsoft and Apple would later exploit. This video is going to explore how Microsoft and Apple capitalized on Xerox's mistake and lack of vision, and how they adapted and expanded on Xerox's concepts, and the subsequent legal battles that followed as they all accused each other of intellectual theft. The Xerox Alto was introduced in 1973 at the Palo Alto Research Center. It was unlike anything the world has ever seen. The machine featured a GUI that allowed users to interact with original Windows icons and menus rather than command line text interfaces. This was accompanied by the use of a mouse-like device enabling intuitive navigation. Additionally, the Alto introduced what you see is what you get word processors, meaning that the text displayed on the screen matched the output on paper, a feature that fundamentally reshaped word processing. Despite these groundbreaking features, Xerox did not market the Alto as a consumer product. Instead, it was relegated to research labs and universities, being sent to places like MIT. And their primary business model focused on copiers and printers, which is why some people use the term Xerox when they refer to a photocopy. This lack of insight and lack of commercial vision would prove to be a missed opportunity for Xerox of monumental proportions. So let's talk about the Silicon Valley Gold Rush. By the late 1970s, Apple and Microsoft were emerging as key players in the technology industry. Steve Jobs in particular became fascinated with the work being done at Xerox PARC after visiting the facility in 1979. Xerox granted Jobs and his team access to their innovations in exchange for the option to purchase Apple stock. Jobs quickly recognized the commercial potential of the GUI and incorporated the concept into Apple's Lisa computer released in 1983. The Lisa was followed by the more affordable Apple Macintosh in 1984, which popularized the GUI interface and became a commercial success. Meanwhile, Microsoft began developing Windows, a GUI-based operating system that complemented its Microsoft DOS platform. Released in 1985, Windows eventually overtook Apple's market share due to the affordability and compatibility with IBM-compatible hardware. While both companies borrowed heavily from Xerox's innovations, it was their ability to commercialize these ideas that effectively distinguished them from Xerox. Apple positioned itself as a design-forward company focused on the user experience, while Microsoft emphasized accessibility and widespread adoption. Let's talk about the legal battles, accusations of theft, and intellectual property disputes. As Apple and Microsoft expanded their influence, disputes over intellectual property began to arise. In 1988, Apple sued Microsoft, alleging that Windows had infringed upon the Macintosh GUI design. Microsoft countered that it had licensed GUI elements from Apple, and both companies ultimately drew upon Xerox's earlier work. The lawsuit highlighted the paradox at the heart of the dispute. Both Apple and Microsoft owed their innovation to Xerox's ideas, yet they claimed ownership over variations of these concepts. The legal battles continued for years, drawing attention to the murky boundaries of intellectual property in the software industry. Ultimately, the courts sided with Microsoft, ruling that Apple's claims did not hold up since many GUI elements were considered unprotectable due to their functional nature. This outcome paved the way for Windows to dominate the personal computing market. Let's talk about Xerox's mixed opportunity, a case study in corporate short-sightedness. Xerox's failure to capitalize on the Alto represents one of the most infamous examples of corporate short-sightedness. While the company invested heavily in research and development, it lacked a vision to transition innovations from the lab to the marketplace. Xerox executives underestimated the potential of personal computing, focusing instead on their established dominance in photocopiers. Had Xerox recognized the commercial value of its GUI, mouse, and WYSIWYG editors, it could have dominated the computing market. Instead, it opened the door for others to build upon its ideas, turning its own innovations into products that reshaped the industry. Apple and Microsoft reshaped the industry using these ideas. Both Apple and Microsoft transformed personal computing by building upon Xerox's foundation. Apple's emphasis on aesthetics and ease of use made its products popular among designers and creative professionals. Meanwhile, Microsoft's strategy of licensing Windows to hardware manufacturers led to its widespread adoption, especially in the business world. The competition between the two companies spurred rapid advances in GUI design, operating system features, and software applications. This rivalry not only fueled innovation, but also set the stage for debates about intellectual property that continue to this day. What were the lessons learned? Innovation versus commercialization. The story of Xerox, Apple, and Microsoft illustrates the importance of commercial vision in turning innovation into success. While Xerox pioneered the GUI and other groundbreaking technologies, its inability to market these ideas allowed others to seize the opportunity. Apple and Microsoft demonstrated that technological advancements alone are insufficient. Companies must also have the vision and strategy to bring products to market effectively. This lesson remains relevant today as industries continue to grapple with balancing innovation and commercialization. In conclusion, the Xerox Alto was a revolutionary product that laid the groundwork for modern computing. Yet Xerox's inability to recognize its potential left the door open for Apple and Microsoft to dominate the industry, both companies building upon Xerox's ideas, transforming them into products that redefined personal computing. Their subsequent legal battles over intellectual property underscored the complexities of innovation in the tech world. Ultimately, Xerox's story serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of vision and execution in technology. While Xerox invented the future, it was Apple and Microsoft that turned the future into reality, demonstrating that ideas alone are not enough. Success requires the ability to see the possibilities, act upon them quickly. The GUI legacy pioneered by Xerox continues to shape our digital world, a reminder that the seeds of tomorrow's innovations often lie hidden in today's overlooked ideas. Just to kind of give you just a personal story on this matter, back in 2001, 2002, I worked for a company that delivered medical equipment through cruise ships. Basically, the customers were people who had certain types of challenges, perhaps mobility challenges, perhaps movement challenges, perhaps oxygen challenges. We also had a lot of customers that may have in part destroyed their lungs to some degree, to which they needed pure oxygen in order to be able to function at most times of the day. So they needed oxygen canisters, oxygen concentrators, and so forth. And so my friend, who was a partner in this business with another individual from Canada, eventually dispatched me to create a software that would allow all of the office's operations to be basically digitized. Up to that point, they were using file cabinets, they were using paper, they were using things that were very snail mail oriented, very, yesteryear sort of, your basic paper file stuff. And they brought me in to create a database that would contain all the information about the inventory of the products that the companies had at their different office locations, and also the customers who made orders. Those orders would be entered into the system, and this would instruct many of the employees who were conducting deliveries to the cruise ships to basically look through the computer system, see what orders were up for that day, get that inventory, check it out, send it to the ship, and that allowed for the company to move more efficiently rather than looking through paperwork to say, okay, here are the orders we have on paper. Don't lose these papers. We haven't made that many copies of them, etc., and so forth. Whereas you could just simply go into a browser like Chrome or Firefox and pull up these orders after you enter a username and password and get into the system that accesses a database. Inevitably, in the beginning, the partner from Canada thought this was very short-sighted, thought that people were wasting time, that it was more important to get people to work, rather than focus on, as he called it, putzing around the computer. But nonetheless, the system that I ended up designing for this company actually ended up being an idea that took on so greatly that the owner from Canada actually got a brilliant idea. And that idea was he went to the cruise lines. He went to Royal Caribbean, he went to Carnival, he went to Princess, and all these different cruise lines, and convinced them that they should be dealing with vendors that only use this type of computer system based on this web interface, and that he would also arrange for the cruise lines themselves to be able to access that interface by having their own usernames and their own passwords, so that before each cruise began, a purser who was responsible for operations on the ship would be able to go through the reports to see, well, which of their cruise customers were coming to the ships with certain types of either mobility challenges or movement problems or breathing problems, and they would then know to expect the workers from the company I worked for, that they would be coming at a certain date and time, so there wouldn't be any security concerns, because this was actually post 9/11, 2001 is when 9/11 happened, so this is happening 2001, 2002, 2003. So at the time, it behooved them to know the comings and goings of who was bringing what to the ship and who would be coming back to the ship to pick up the equipment at the end of the cruise. In so doing, this partner from Canada actually then used that to monopolize the market to his favor, and then start excluding those vendors that were his competitors that did not have such a system. So this goes to show you that sometimes forward-thinking people jump on things right away, as they were able to exploit my creation in order to make things more simplified and easier to do, and then use that to gain a market share over different competitors. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you're new here, this is a safe space. If you're returning, I love and appreciate you so much, and I'm glad that you're back. In the name of the Most High God, I wish you health, wealth, prosperity, and abundance. Blessings and protection. Signing off. Take care. Have a great day.